Hello humans, today I wanted to talk about this guy right here. This is the Cold Steel Double Safe Hunter. I do like their boxes having an actual printout for whatever it is that they have inside. I do like the one box fits all thing from a sustainability standpoint, but if I'm in a big box store, being able to see what the box is quite nice. According to its own specs, it's 3 millimeters thick, has a 3.5 inch blade, 8 3/4 inches overall length, it weighs 4 ounces. It has a 4 7/8 handle. That's a long handle for the blade. That's an inch and 3/8 longer than the blade, which is quite a bit. And 8CR13 MOV. They're very sharp. They can be destroyed if you abuse the living tar out of them. But honestly, go on to Cold Steel's website, or YouTube channel, I should say, and check out some of the torture testing they do on these. It's actually pretty damn impressive, because they do torture test the absolute hell out of it. And apparently they ship in bubble wrap. That's pretty sweet. Plain cardboard box, burn it, recycle it, do whatever you do. I really do like seeing that. And bubble wrap, which is just super fun. It's the moderately poppy type. Right on, and here we have it. So it's got these like GFN and some type of injected molded handles. It's got this right here, which is your double safe mechanism in the lock position. Blade won't open. In the unlock position, the blade will open. And then, does it have the triad lock, or is it just a standard back lock? I actually can't quite see inside well enough to tell. I'm not entirely sure. I will double check that for the second part of this video. If you never last long enough, I do the like this part where I just pop it open, and then later I experiment or explain how my week or couple weeks went with this guy. But immediately off the bat, the scales, they're very, very grippy, very textured, and asymmetrical. You can see this near almost looks like it has like a bolster, and then a piece underneath, which is going to save your pocket quite a bit from this pocket clip. I imagine it's a one-position pocket clip, but maybe you can roll it over. I actually can't quite tell. With enough determination, anything can happen. But, and then you have the flat, non-tooled side of your pivot on the non-show scale. I don't know. A lot of companies do this. I'm not a huge fan. I like having the untooled side on the show side scale. I think it just looks a lot better. But it does mean it's a captive pivot, so there is at least that. The other thing is they have the tooled side of the thumb stud on the non-show side, which just makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Oh, that had great action. Hold up. 4 lock back. I'm actually quite impressed. That is quite good action for a lockback, especially. You've got this sort of, it's not quite a finger choil, but it's kind of a finger choil to get up right behind the edge. This is a big handle. And then you've got all of your signposting right up there. And double safe hunter in the front. So this is the clip point version. There is also a non-clip pointed version. This swedge is really thick. I don't know how much that swedge is actually going to end up doing. And this is actually a rather thick blade in general for a pocket knife. Cold Steel is very, very well known for their very, very robust locks and products in general. They make really heavy duty stuff. And like I said, they torture test the hell out of them on their website. So is that to check out. YouTube channel, website, probably both, honestly. Anyways, in terms of its edge, it's pretty good out of the box. Not right in there. Dead spot. Okay. It's definitely not dull, but there is a little bit of a dead spot that I'm feeling that just wasn't quite gotten to quite as well. It's not abnormal, and in the for $50, I'm not happy to see it, but it is not the end of the world, and it does feel like it'd be pretty easy to take out it was just decidedly noticeable when I was cutting paper that there was one part that just wasn't quite biting as well. For other tests, I do not think it's going to do very well on this particular test. In the name of honesty, it's a pretty thick knife. At least it feels like a fairly thick knife. And whilst it does have a sort of saber height, that's definitely hollow grind, I don't think that this is going to be the test for it, but we can find out. Okay, it's not as bad as I thought, but I am definitely feeling quite a bit of shouldering. Right there. And that makes the second part of that cut a lot harder. So yeah, not altogether horrible, but I am, at the very least, absolutely feeling that shouldering at the top of the grind. Now into something that I expect this is going to do very, very well at, poking things. Yeah, that is absolutely just sinking in there. Very little effort. I don't want to push too hard and knock everything off my desk, but it is like, if you're going for poking performance, this is poking very, very well. I need to make like a block or something. Anyways. So yeah, out of the box, the edge is good, but definitely nothing to write home about. Some type of plastic injection molded. It's very, very strongly textured. So it is nice that there's a patch underneath the pocket clip. I don't think the patch needs to be the whole scale, but it is nice that there's a patch under the pocket clip with less texturing, just because it's going to rip up your pants a little bit less. Is not quite centered, which is kind of interesting, but not something I'm going to worry too much about, if I'm being honest. And for a lockback, that is exceptionally good action. And it does lock in both the open and closed position. Lockup is perfectly solid. It's pretty much what you expect from Cold Steel. They do very, very solid lockup very, very well. My initial feel in the hand, it's just pretty comfortable. It's not particularly uncomfortable is what I should say. They could probably have taken down the inside just a hair. It's not the worst I've seen by a long shot, but it's not amazing either. The pocket clip seems fine. It's not deep carry. I personally don't like a deep carry pocket clip on a work knife. And this is absolutely a work knife. It's gonna drop. Yeah. This is, because of the double safe mechanism and because of the way the pocket clip is set up with it being so heavily favored on one side, this feels a lot like a right-hand biased knife, but it has a very unbiased lock in lock back or triad lock or whatever it happens to be, which is quite interesting to me. Cold Steel in general does make quite good stuff, but I don't know. I'm excited as more of a budget option. This does face quite a bit of competition in that kind of price range. You do have Buck doing some amazing things in that price range. You also have Sencut doing some really good stuff in this sort of $50 Canadian price range. So it is interesting to see how it's going to compare. But for a larger size of a normal knife, this is pretty nice feeling immediately out of the box. And like, for something you can pick up in a lot of different places fairly consistently for an inexpensive price, there's not much to complain about here. I mean, can I reverse flick it? No, I'm not going to be able to. Yeah. I'm going to play with it for a little bit. I'm going to come back with more thoughts on it, but right off the bat, I mean, it feels pretty good. 8CR, 14 MOV, not the most premium steel in the world, but in this budget category, you can get better for the money, but generally speaking, that's not bad at all. And it does flick nicely. Yeah, I'll play with this for a little bit. I will be back. And we are back. So I've been playing with this guy for a couple weeks on and off, as always. Whoops. And I have to say, this was not a bad experience, but this was a very toned down experience compared to a lot of the stuff that I've been carrying recently. Because a lot of the stuff that I carry recently has felt a lot more modern, has felt a lot more premium than this. So it was a little bit of an adjustment to start out with. Now, it does everything a knife should do. You know, it cuts into stuff, it has a fairly pokey tip, good for opening feed bags, stuff like that. But a lot of the refined details just kind of felt off about it. So I'm going to start with that. First thing first, the fact that the two scales are significantly different just feels... cheap isn't the right word, but it feels like I'm missing something, and I hate feeling like I'm missing something on a pocket knife. On any knife, but especially a pocket knife. Something like this just feels wrong to me. But that's not it, right? Like, this scale's smaller, it kind of makes up for it with the pocket clip, but it doesn't feel right. Action was surprisingly okay for lockback. That is something I have to give Cold Steel props to. All of the Cold Steel lockbacks that I've felt, or Triad locks, which this is not, this is an actual lockback, I believe, yeah, have a very distinctive feel to them. And that feel is nicer than any other lockback that I have experienced in terms of the flick. But this double safe action thing didn't really make a noticeable difference to me. The other thing too is that if you try, you can still get the edge of the blade out even with it quote unquote locked closed, so it wasn't effective. Crisp spine, but only on one side. So this side here is slightly rounded over, and then this side here is actually quite crisp. Like this side right here, I can take shavings off of my thumbnail, and with this side right here, I actually can't, and I'm putting I'm trying quite a bit harder, but this side here is knocked down and this side here isn't, which is just kind of weird. I guess if you wanted to strike a fire still and you're right-handed, you're more likely to use that side anyways, but still a little bit bizarre to me personally. Yeah, I'm curious. I'm pretty sure I know how this lock is going to work, but I do want to take it apart and actually make sure that I know how this lock works. So I'm going to get started on doing that while I talk about some other interesting things. And one of them, and this here kind of annoys me, the pivot is a T10. This is good. The body screws are all T6, like T6, and that's what fits them. And honestly, I'd rather just average it out so that everything is a T8 instead of having some that are T6s and some that are, and like the pivot screw being a T10. That just feels so wrong to me. And I can respect the decision to have a T10 pivot. It's the T6 body screws that I actually don't like, and I just realized there's not going to be any metal inserts for these. Okay. This is just a pin to hold in the lock back. And just so people know I'm not bullshitting them here, this is in fact a T10. It is a captive pivot, which is actually quite nice. Okay. Is there anything else that I'm gonna have to take apart? I don't think so. This feels wrong. I don't want to have to take apart. And I don't think I have to take apart anything else. This should be good. It might not be good. What? Okay, what if I just push this out? Okay, so that gets the blade out. There's the other Teflon washer. So it does have Teflon washers on either side. I'm assuming they're Teflon. They could just be nylon or any mixture of other things. I'm gonna put those right there on the blade. What the fuck is holding you? Oh, it must be these. No, it can't be those because it's opening up right here. Which means it has to be something down here that's messing. Am I gonna have to... Okay, let's see if that's the problem then. You might have to take all of the screws out in order. Why is there another washer? Okay, then that's... I mean, these are paper thin washers, but it is still kind of weird that there's 3 of them, which probably mean, well, it could mean a couple different things. It could actually mean that they're being used for spacing in order to get it centered, because this was centered throughout all of the time that I have used it, but it's not necessarily something I would bet on. Okay, so there is steel inserts. Did that make a difference in terms of taking this thing apart? Not noticeably. I might actually just be it looks like it's working. It looks like it's working. I have to place trust in the fact that this looks like it's working. Oh, okay. Okay. I'm assuming one of those is actually going to be for this. That's kind of fascinating, actually. I'm assuming that is what actually is going to interact with this lock right here. But I've taken all of the applicable screws out, so there we go. Yeah, so here's our back spring. That's going to sit in there. You can actually see the results of the molding. Like, this does have the feel of being an inexpensive knife. A lot of it's not that a lot of corners are being cut. I am not going to say that because that is not how I feel. But there are absolutely lots of places where expense was spared. And like the handles definitely feel like part of that. It's gonna sit there. I'm gonna put this back in upside down. Yeah, so that's how a lockback operates, in case you didn't know. It's actually not super duper complicated. And then I'm assuming they're going this side. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. I have to assume that these two work together because that's just so freaking weird. Okay. I'm gonna have to assume that these two go together. Come together right now. Here's the double safe. Literally all it does is this little output right here. It's gonna hold it. By the looks of it, it's gonna hold it up so that it can't get depressed, which means the blade can't move, so it holds it in its joint. Pretty simple process, pretty much exactly what I was thinking, but I am glad to have that be confirmed that that is how that works. That is kind of neat, if nothing else. Okay, let's put this back together. I don't like that I had to take all the screws out to get it fully apart. That's kind of annoying, but I do understand why. You can see here how the lock engagement and disengagement is going to work. It is always fun. Like, you should, in my opinion, take apart every knife you own at least once, just so you can figure out how it actually operates. And then you'll learn some sweet tricks, like whether or not you should orient this, which I think you should always do. Not whether or not, how you can orient. Which is apparently going to fight me today. Okay, and you just use that to twist it where you want it to go, and then I'm holding it very firmly on the back with my finger so that it doesn't rotate past that. And then it just becomes a game of lining everything up and putting it back together. Whoa. Did I just headbutt this by not paying attention? Yes, my apologies. Okay. This really, it's not bad to take apart or put back together. There we are. It's really not a difficult thing to do. Why are you? Okay, put all the body screws back in. Okay, let's get into the actual carry experience because I'm 11 minutes into this part and I haven't really discussed it. But long story short, it was fine. It did end up feeling a little bit cheap. There were a couple of moments when like it dulled faster than I would have expected. That's kind of annoying. And allow me to make this clear. It dulled a little bit faster than I expected for a knife in a 7 or an 8 CR. And part of that is the fact that I have been experiencing some really nice, heat treats in those steels. But even compared to other cold steel offerings, this didn't feel like it was holding an edge brilliantly. And for a design like a folding hunter, big old clip point, and with a double safe lock, and this feels like it should be able to be put to hard work for an extended period of time. All of its design choices make it feel like that. But in use, that is not the experience that I had, which is a point that I am going to hold against it more than slightly. But, and there was other things too, like this thing, despite having an ambidextrous lock, has an utter disdain for left-handed people. And I don't just mean that because of the, sorry, this screw's being a pain. I don't just mean that because of the asymmetrical handle design, but the actual deployment pin, the thumb stud, is different lengths on different sides. You can reverse flick this knife if you really want to, but you can see just how biased it is against left-handed people, right? Which, again, you're talking about a percentage of the population that is less than 10%. I kind of get it, but come on, it's a lockback, right? If it is a lockback, excluding very specific circumstances, it should be as ambidextrous as humanly possible. Think about the Buck 110, think about other similar knives. Oh wow, that's stiffened. I mean, okay, we're gonna fiddle with that. I tightened that way too much. Okay, let's stiffen that up. There we go. That's better. Okay. It locks out extremely solid. It does all of the knife things that a knife should do. It felt like I was leaving something to be desired. Let's do some size comparisons real quick. I feel like I've talked enough down about this to give people an understanding of how I feel about it, but here it is next to the Wee Banter and the Civivi Chevalier. As you can see, it is quite a bit bigger than the Wee Banter, and just a hair larger than the Civivi Chevalier. Despite that, it actually has not too tall of a handle, a fairly comparably sized handle to the Wee Banter, which it wasn't uncomfortable in the hand per se. It felt asymmetrical, and because of similar type stuff that was on the market, that was not, in my opinion, a good feel. Here it is next to the knife that it's trying to steal competition from. Oh, I just realized what it is. This swedged section visually looked a little bit odd to me, and I couldn't quite figure out why, but I just realized it's because of how much better the swedge is on the Buck 110, and even like the Gerber Gator has a much nicer swedge in my opinion, because it goes pretty much all the way down to the tip. This, because of how angular it is, just didn't fit right, and I just realized what it is. Okay, and as you can see, it is very, very comparable to the size of the Buck 110, pretty much the exact same size. It is going to be smaller feeling because, one, it has a pocket clip, which makes it easier to carry, but two, in that bolstered area, it's actually not quite as obvious, but it is significantly thinner than the Buck 110 is, right? Which is kind of how it goes. The Buck 110, for as much of a legend as it is, and it is a knife that I genuinely love, it is pretty heavy in the pocket. And it is just a hair thicker than the Zippo up here in the bolster, but by the time you're down there, it's quite a bit slimmer. You know, it is what it is, and it's not something that I necessarily mind, but and we're gonna do blade stock just because I can, not because I find it fun. So it is a little bit on the thicker side. 123 thousandths is what I keep getting. So, I mean, it's a cold steel. I'm sure you saw at the beginning of the video how thick they were claiming. Probably in millimeters, because they like claiming their blade thickness in millimeters. But that's fine. Conclusion. This is not a bad knife, but I genuinely did not enjoy carrying it. I think that that is the conclusion that I have to give about this. And a lot of the reason why I didn't enjoy carrying this is because in my mind, I'm comparing this to other $55 knives. And excluding the secondhand market entirely, for $55, I can get myself something that's a lot nicer and feels a lot better. Sorry, I just went over to my sort of knife cabinet area. So let's actually not grab stuff. Okay, if you can do a fixed blade, this whole section is gonna get cut out most likely, but if you can do a fixed blade, Moore-Kniff Companion F does everything this does, but better for less money. And like, this is $10 more. This is actually cheaper. The price on that. So these aren't quite one-to-one comparisons. There is one very good one-to-one comparison that I'm going to mention after these, but SOG Fielder feels better put together. This is a nicer knife, in my opinion. Better action, flicks better, is nicer. Secondly, this is the Buck 190. Feels more full in the hand, is of a very similar size. It doesn't have a thumb stud opener, and it is technically a little bit smaller, but this feels better, and the 420 HC does hold an edge better than the Double Safe Hunter. And then finally, also for the Buck family, but for about $10 more, this is the 259 Hexam? I don't remember. But this is a really nice knife. It is a little bit bigger. It doesn't have the clip point top, but still not bad. But here is, in my opinion, the #1 biggest kicker to this thing. It is the exact same price as the Buck 110 lightweight, or whatever they call their plastic handled version of the modernized Buck 110. And I think that that's the killer for this thing. I genuinely believe you should get a buck 110 with the plastic handles and the pocket clip for this price. The steel will hold an edge better. It's more comfortable in the hand. And I have a lot more trust in the company's warranty. You don't get the double safe feature, but again, like, I never used it really. I didn't find it useful. So yeah, that's where I sit with this. It's a fine knife if that's your option, but for 50 bucks you can get stuff that's a lot better, in my opinion. And it's just not, it's not comparable to anything. Stay safe and have fun out there. Peace.